Our talk right now is Dark Glamour and Gendered Risk Women, Trans Men, and Gender-Expansive Latinx, Navigating Safety, Belonging, and Resistance in Los Angeles' Goth Queer Nightlife. Cris Avitia Camacho is an undergraduate student at UCLA, triple majoring in Chicana, Chicano, and Central American Studies, Labor Studies, and Gender Studies. They are a Mellon Mays undergraduate fellow, Spanish editor for La Gente News magazine, and internal education and research co-director for Compass, a student-led farm worker advocacy organization. Their research spans labor, migration, gender, sexuality, and cultural production, with current projects examining how Latinx and queer participants in Los Angeles' goth and alternative nightlife reclaim club spaces as sites of belonging, resistance, and community. They also co-led research on farm worker justice, including UCLA dining's food sourcing practices, and assist on a dissertation project on barriers to prenatal care among agricultural workers in California's Central Valley. Committed to bridging scholarship and activism, Cris plans to pursue a PhD in anthropology, gender studies, Latinx studies, or performance studies to expand mentorship and access for underrepresented students in academia. So welcome, Cris. Thank you so much.
So this is my Mellon Mays project. I started out literally last October, which is crazy, it's been a year. And so I've done around 8 months of actual ethnographic research, which is really exciting. I got to meet really cool people, and yeah. So this is kind of what I'm gonna go over. I'm gonna cut some stuff short just because it's just a lot. It's basically my thesis, so. So a question that I get a lot is why do research in the club? Do you want to just have fun? And the question is, the answer is, well, yes, but also no. There's so much more to a club than most people think. I personally do this to explore the intersections of race, gender, and sexuality within this alternative nightlife space, specifically goth and punk. And also I want to examine how participants themselves challenge this kind of dominant narratives of Latinidad, heteronormativity, and authenticity in alternative nightlife spaces. And so my research questions that are leading this study are: how do queer, trans, and gender-expansive Latinx navigate affective attachments to nightlife spaces that simultaneously offer belonging and reproduce harm? In what ways do practices of performance, fashion, and music between LA's goth, punk, and alternative nightlife scenes enact forms of disidentification and recycling role-making that challenge racialized and gender exclusions? And something that I've delved into more as of lately is how to access mutual aid, care, and collective participation within these spaces, transform them into zones of political and decolonial possibility. And so my literature review, what I like to do is I kind of combine what I found and also my own observations within the literature that already exists. And I do this because I feel for me, you can't have one without the other. You can't really talk about the literature without talking about what's actually going on, because otherwise that creates a sense of disconnection from what you're studying, and it also just feels extractive to me, which is not what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to just take this knowledge from the community, because I am part of that community as well. And what I want to do is use my positionality, my privilege as a Mellon Mays scholar, to allow these people to share their own stories, to feel seen in scholarship, because to me, scholarship and activism are intertwined more than we think they are sometimes. And so my work centers on belonging and disidentification. by Ramos and José Esteban Muñoz. And I do this because I want to understand how Latinas and queers in LA refuse both white alternative culture and heteronormativity Latinidad. Because rather than trying to fit in, they're remixing these dominant styles, sound, self-fashioning, and performance into creative expressions of survival and identity. So in my fieldwork, I see this every single week. I have constant participation in these scenes, and I see it in people's outfit choices, in a DJ set, in people's interactions, and even the aftermath when I conduct my semi-structured interviews and when I conduct testimonial workshops. And so I see alternative fashion as a form of resistance. And I draw from Jessica Garcia Hernandez's work on queer Paisa style and Tomás Ibarra Fraso's theory of exclusismo, because it emphasizes how DIY and over-the-top styling rejects both white alt scene norms and Latinx respectability politics. So in nightclubs, participants will remix various like goth/punk aspects of their aesthetics with Latinx cultural signifiers. I'm kind of doing this right now, like this is stuff that my mom gave me, but I'm also incorporating like more alternative aspects of my outfit, if that makes sense. And so I frame these performances as feminist and queer acts of self-fashioning that rewrites who gets to be seen as Latinx, who gets to be seen as Goth, who gets to be, have this identity without having other people telling you that you're not being authentic enough. And so we also see this in music. Like some of the popular artists that I see being played at clubs are bands like The Cure, Sex and the Banshees, Maná, Caifanes, and others. Because for Latinas and queers, these soundtracks become anthems of belonging. They have also even inspired like current bands like French Police and Los Ángeles. I got the chance to interview Los Ángeles, and that was a really cool experience because you get to learn a little bit more of what goes into music making. And something that I want to highlight about Los Ángeles specifically is that not only are they remixing some of the old styles of music, but they're creating new music that new generations can enjoy, that have this kind of alternative sound to it, but also kind of like cultural signifiers to remix it and create new sounds for future generations. So by dancing, dressing, and singing along in these club spaces, participants are actively reshaping what it means to be Latina, centering alienation, refusal, and emotional depth. And just as I said before, I see nightclubs not only as a place of enjoyment, but also as a cultural space. And we see this even in the scene itself. Like, I can't remember the last time I was in the scene or a club or an event and I saw a white person, like other than my partner who happens to be half white, half Mexican. And yeah, I just, especially right now with the immigration situation that is going on, I have personally seen a lot of organizers from mutual aid and grassroots organizations that have collaborated within the scene to host benefit nights. We see fundraisers happening within nightlife venues. I even see flyers sometimes, which I think is really cool. And then also just being in the scene, like you kind of get to know what's going on. And yeah, I just think that it's really important to highlight the stories of people not only existing within the scene, but also resisting against being pushed out, and also collectively organizing and being there for each other, caring for each other. I think that's something that we really need right now, and I think that's something that that I think people should know more about. And just really quickly about the methodologies that I've been doing, I basically use different frameworks and to kind of see how, why people act the way they do, basically. So we have co-optimism, policy disintegration, and basically, basically they help me to analyze the stories of mutual care, gender risk, and also kind of shape who feels comfort, fear, or belonging within the spaces. Because a lot of the time we seem to forget that contradicting feelings exist within these spaces. And then I focus a little bit more about space, the relationships that occur, this kind of positionalities of power, structures of power that exist within it. I also focus a lot on performance. I focus on music and dance, has embodied identity work. I pay close attention to sound, gesture, and nuance. And most importantly, I care about understanding how this mutual aid collective kind of occurs naturally, how people kind of just support one another outside state or capitalist systems. And these are some of the methods that I've been doing to collect my data. So through participant observations, by having, what's the word in English? Constant participation in nightclubs. And I can't name any of the nightclubs just because of IRB privacy, they didn't let me. So, yeah. And yeah, then I conduct my ethnographic fieldwork, and then sometimes I'll meet people and they might be interested in the work that I do. So then I conduct semi-structured interviews and informal interviews, and then I do hold testimonial workshops, which are a space of healing, community care, and just a space for people to kind of lay down their worries and just come together, especially with the current state of the world. I think these spaces have allowed people to kind of just have a space to hang out. Like, I'll make matcha for them, I'll make dinner. I invite people to my apartment because to me that's just like how I engage with my community. And yeah, some of my current findings, like as I said, I think nightclubs do act as informal networks of mutual aid. They tend to organize a lot of donation drives, fundraisers, stuff like that. And I think what I've seen is that style, dance, and sound really do become forms of protest, and they reaffirm, life, identity, and belonging in itself. In a city that often criminalizes people who are just existing. And so, yeah, these are just some participants that allowed me to use their pictures. And as you can see, people are just using staff as resistance, but I think at the end of the day, they're just being themselves. They're just being their most authentic selves. They're letting their worries down, and they're not caring about what anybody else thinks. And some informal interviews I've had, yeah, it's just, people being people coming to these spaces to, find a sense of belonging and, kind of connect with different aspects of their identity. And then I have some testimonial excerpts. This is something that I'm really excited about because I think testimonials are like the most intimate form of, sharing what you're feeling. Even if you're not sharing with other people, I think it can be very healing. And I think it's something that we really need right now. And so I just wanted to highlight these two testimonials by Alicia and April, who share stories about, being out in the scene and taking care of each other, taking care of one another through fundraising, or just keeping each other safe, keeping each other alive. And so what are my future plans? Because I still have I want to say 6 months, no, a little over this, a little bit, I don't know, 8 months left of my project. But obviously this is an ongoing work that is probably gonna follow me for the rest of my life, just because I'm gonna be part of this community forever. And say I get into a PhD program, I'll continue that work and I'll keep going back to my community. And so I want to continue documenting what's going on, how these participants create safety and solidarity under heightened gender risk. I want to continue investigating the connections within nightlife and activist networks. I even want to get into digital resistance and digital scholarship, just because I feel like I haven't done that enough. And maybe eventually publish a photo essay, sign, or bilingual news magazine issue. I have published little snippets of my research on a news magazine online. And I've done it in Spanish and English just because I really care about accessibility to all communities. And yeah, this is just a fun little exercise. You guys don't have to do it if you guys don't feel comfortable. And I'm not asking you to share either, but I just think it's nice to take a moment just to breathe and share a little bit about your own experiences. Because nightlife is a side of embodied resistance, community care, and political imagination. And yeah, I have some prompts. I personally like to use these prompts during my actual testimonial workshops, just because I feel like they're very open-ended, and they allow you to kind of, just express how you're feeling today. So yeah, these are just some questions that I want to leave you guys with today. You don't have to do it right now. If you don't want to, you can take a picture and then do it in your own time. But I just think this is something that I think people enjoy, especially people that are invited to my workshops. And my workshops are monthly. If you guys are interested in joining a workshop, you guys can come up to me and just be like, hey, I would like to go to a workshop. They're at my apartment, so I don't know if that's weird for anyone. But yeah. And I just wanted to acknowledge people that have been there for me throughout my process. My 2 faculty mentors, Jessica and Ricky. My grad student mentors, Lynette and Lydia, who have really been on the heart of my research. I go to them every single week and I'm like, hey, I'm kind of stuck on this, I don't know what direction to take this. And they're like, okay, girl, I got you, you're good. And then just the fellowship for allowing me to, have financial support to do this project, give back to my community, because obviously I'm paying the participants for their semi-structured interviews and then for the testimonial workshops. And then I'm also giving them money for say they're I can't afford to go to this event this week. And I'm like, oh, don't worry, I got you. So I send them money for that, because I just think that community is really important, and I think I wouldn't feel good doing this work if I didn't give the money that they gave me back to the community. I don't want to keep any of it. Obviously, if I needed to pay for school or anything like that, I would use it. But yeah, and I think that was all. Yeah. So thank you guys for your time. I hope you guys were able to take something away. And maybe I'll see you guys at our workshop. So that'll be exciting. Thank you.
Are you open to answering any questions?
Yeah.
Okay,
Sure.
does anyone have any questions for Cris?
Even fun questions are fine.
Since the most activists people are blending in old and new music,
Mhm.
what kind of genre would that be? Genre, yeah.
Honestly, I would say it's kind of like Latino rock, like rock en español. That's what I would characterize it as, because their sound is kind of like a remix of old sounds and new sounds. Like they play the guitar and the drums, and then the singer, he sings in Spanish, which I think is really cool because I don't see a lot of musicians do that in Spanish now with algorithm music. But yeah, that's what they do.
Is most of your field work done in the clubs?
What was that?
Is most of your field work in the clubs?
No, it has actually also been like at mutual aid events that people have invited me to. And then, yeah, I mean, yeah, just that.
Have you heard of the Bricks? It's in Maywood. Bricks, it's like a club. A lot of like, kind of this scene like hangs out in those groups.
In the bricks?
Bricks, it's called Bricks, yeah.
Bricks.
And like, yeah, all the time, there's like events there. And the most randomest people like show up. And I just walk by there because there's like a taco truck.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, it's a like crazy scene. It's called Bricks.
Where?
It's in Maywood. Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, I found it. Okay. Yeah, I'm always discovering new places. I turned 21 this year, so it was kind of hard to get into spaces before then. Yeah.
I saw the Blue Mondays in there.
Yeah, that was like the first place I went to because I was 18,
Mm-hmm.
so that was the only place I could get into. But yeah, now I can get into more places, so I'm trying to discover new places, meet new people who are doing this kind of work, and yeah.
Do you look into the history of like other like queer Latinx clubs or scenes or communities like in LA?
Yeah, I was actually inspired, like this research was inspired by a class that I took on Nightlife actually. With my faculty mentor. So I learned a little bit about the history in LA and like the different bands that were at the time. My dad was also like a big person in the scene back when he was a teenager. So some of the stuff is also like borrowed history from that.
I have a question. So the testimonios that you do, or like the interviews that you do, it's just for your research, right? Are you thinking of like later on? I know you're gonna build and probably go on to like a PhD master's PhD program and all of that. But is there any like interest in like archiving that?
I have thought about that, but
Because
also
I'm an archivist, and like yeah.
I would like that, but I feel like I don't want to pressure my participants
Yeah.
into sharing something so personal. So for now, like I've just been like, hey, here's the workshop and we do this and we just have a good time, and then everybody takes their notebook home.
Oh, so you do the workshop similar to like with the notebooks, and
Yeah.
then they write in there like their reflection, and then do you take that? They share with you what's in there, and that's what you use for your research. Oh.
Yeah, they share with me what they feel comfortable sharing.
Yeah, but it's all written. So
Yeah.
is it talking sometimes, but it's mostly written?
Yeah, it's mostly
Interesting.
talking. Like sometimes if I have the content, I'll be like, can I record this conversation? And then they'll share like a little excerpt of what they wrote, and then I'll be like, can I ask a question about it? And so I'll ask a question about it, and then we kind of have like a back and forth conversation about it. So I do have that. So I guess if I do like again get their consent, then I could archive that.
Yeah, and it would be like years from now, you know, like you have this, because that's what happens, you know, scholars like create a book or they do research with it, but then they have all these things.
Yeah.
And so it's probably good to have those conversations with folks, like at some point, if that was something, because I think those are stories that are not really, well, if somebody feels comfortable with that, but they're stories that are not really told, you know, and they should be like preserved but of course with their consent.
Have you found like any differences in themes like for your interviews like across age groups for those who are like more like the 18 to like early 20-year-olds versus those who have been in like the goth and punk scenes longer, like 80s, 90s?
Yeah, I mean, the younger people do tend to be more eager to speak. The older people, I do tend to have to ask things very differently. I have to accommodate to the kind of language that they use. So for that, to like kind of prepare for those interviews, I asked my brother, like, how can I frame this in a way that, will make not sense, but that will come across like okay, if that makes sense. Yeah, so I just noticed like younger people talk more, they're more open. Older people are a little bit more reserved, and yeah.
Are there any other questions for Chris? No? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.